There's something deadly stalking the eerie San Luis Valley in Colorado and New Mexico. A mysterious entity that preys on cattle, mutilating them with surgical precision. It's a gruesome phenomenon that's been going on now for more than 20 years, and one that's got officials and ranchers truly baffled. Animal X headed to northern New Mexico to speak to those caught up in this bizarre business, more commonly known as cattle mutilations. Rancher Jesse Gonzalez has seen the work of the cattle surgeons firsthand. In just 2 weeks, he lost 2 cows, one of them a prized 6-month-old Angus bull used for breeding. These days, he patrols his cattle with a rifle at the ready, hoping to avoid a repeat attack.
I came to check on my cattle, and then I noticed a cow was lying inside. All his 6 organs were gone. All his testicles, all his 6 organs were gone. 1 eye, the tongue was missing, part of the ear. There was a skin graft, which I found to be very weird on the jaw. It was like a shape just right at the jaw, and no blood. It was a really weird situation there.
John Paternoster has spent 6 years campaigning on behalf of local ranchers. He claims authorities are not doing enough and has proposed new forensic guidelines to be used every time cattle are discovered mysteriously mutilated. In this case, the animal was found to have more substantial wounds inside than out.
This small hole on the neck, we didn't know the significance of until we skinned the animal. And as you can see, the tail was missing, as originally reported by the rancher. We do not know what we're dealing with, and when we respond to the scene of a cattle mutilation, we treat it not only as a crime scene, but as a hazardous material scene. The possibility of toxicity has to be accounted.
Fears over contamination seem to come from one prevailing theory, that extraterrestrials are the cattle surgeons who carry out the mutilations. This remote area of the Rocky Mountains has certainly had its fair share of reported UFO sightings. During the day and at night, people have claimed to have seen unusual craft and lights, all within the confines of the San Luis Valley. Another explanation is that the macabre attacks are the work of satanic cults practicing animal sacrifice. Even this legendary creature, the chupacabras, or goat sucker, has been blamed for the killings. Whoever or whatever is responsible, they have certainly covered their tracks. The lack of evidence left at the scene is just as mystifying as the mutilations themselves. Tony Trujillo says before his ranch was targeted, he'd half expected an attack. After all, his neighbor had lost 2 cows in just 2 weeks. Eventually, he found a cow with its sex organs missing, as well as its udder, part of its tongue and eye. He says he was astonished to find not one scrap of evidence.
Nothing. You don't see nothing. No footprints, no nothing. And there was snow that day, that when mine happened, there was snow that Friday, and there were no signs of anything, no signs of struggle, nothing.
Animal X traveled to Albuquerque to find the official government agency investigating the cattle mutilations. We met up with the director of the New Mexico Livestock Board, John Wortman, who admits that he has a real mystery on his hands. He's recently set up a special team of investigators to deal with the problem, a move many claim has come too late. As for the unconventional theories like those involving UFOs, he says without hard evidence, it's not something the department is pursuing.
What I'm saying is that I think that clearly it's people that are doing it. For what the reasons are, we're not certain. And until we catch one of these people and prove that person was the one that did it, based upon real evidence, and solve a case, we're all going to be kind of wondering what it is.
Perhaps in time, better forensic tests will help authorities find out exactly what is causing these cattle mutilations. Perhaps we will never know. Interestingly, the San Luis Valley is not the only place where such killings have been recorded. Sweden has its own cattle mutilations problem, and in England, horse mutilators are at work. Could there be a link between the cases? For ranchers, the mutilations are an economic burden. Losing their cattle is costing them money. They, for one, feel they have a right to know just what it is that's out there.
Some Animal X mysteries defy science and draw investigators to seek answers even from beyond this world. Others are rooted in the brutal heart of nature. This ferocious killer picked on an unsuspecting victim without warning.
Tropical Australia is one of the most beautiful places on Earth. Australians call it God's own country. But lurking below these tranquil, inviting waters lies a devil who's not after your soul, but will take your body as soon as look at you. Animal X travelled to the remote Kimberley region of Western Australia to investigate a fatal tale that shows the incredible single-mindedness of these giant predators. Ginger Meadows was an unsuspecting tourist, a vivacious young American woman from New Jersey who loved life but was to experience an horrific death.
She had a lot of plans. She wanted to see the world, travel, experience different cultures, meet different people. She seemed to have the next 3-4 years planned ahead.
Jane Burchett was with Ginger when she died. In fact, the crocodile that took Ginger Meadows could easily have taken her instead. Jane has never spoken about the experience to the media before. It happened about 8 years ago at a place called Crocodile Creek. Jane and Ginger had been cruising on a yacht called Lady G. Running out of fresh water, the skipper took Ginger's party to get fresh water from a waterfall.
On entering, it was breathtaking. We tied off to the base of the waterfall, and the captain, the engineer, and the first mate started climbing up the waterfall, and Ginger and I remained behind.
This was when the girls made their tragic mistake. It was a hot day. The water looked so inviting. The temptation to dive in and cool off was too much.
Stay forever.
Whilst we were swimming to the shoreline, we probably made it half the way there. I was swimming ahead of Ginger. I got an extremely uneasy feeling, and I said, something's wrong. We were probably about 6-7 meters from the shoreline, and we heard the captain screaming out at the top of his lungs, "Get out of the water, crocodile." And I turned around, and probably a similar distance from the other side of the bay, all I could see was the wake in the water and something obviously swimming towards us.
Jane says there was no panic. They both decided to swim to where they thought they'd be safe, a ledge in about 2 feet of water. But nothing was going to save them from this prehistoric killer.
As this crocodile was heading straight towards us and this thing was going so fast, I just could not believe how fast it was swimming. I totally remember not being scared, but thinking, how are we going to get out of this?
I'm gonna go. No, Ginger, just stay here. No, I'm gonna go back. No, stay here, Ginger. Ginger!
And then it brought her up out of the water, waist high, in the water, and she looked at me with her hands in the air. It had hold of her, and she just looked at me as if to say, "What was that?" And took her back under the water again, and gone.
Crocodiles have always been a problem in this part of Western Australia. They were almost hunted to extinction until they were declared protected a few decades ago. Now, when they become too troublesome, they can't be killed or culled. They have to be relocated. Wildlife officers are dispatched to set traps for the killers. Inside this trap is half a donkey. Laurie Smith is a reptile curator at the WA Museum. He knows what makes crocodiles tick.
About 6 foot, 5, 6 foot.
Well, there's no doubt they are killing machines, and under natural conditions, being large animals, they've got to obviously kill fairly large prey to sustain themselves.
Police Sergeant Mick Scanlon headed the team of rescuers whose gruesome task it was to find Ginger's body. He'll never forget the day they recovered Ginger's remains and how the giant croc tried to reclaim its prey.
I saw something rise out of the water, and it was well lit enough to see that it was a crocodile, and it rose about 6 foot out of the water and crashed against the side of the boat. And it struck the boat heavily, and I saw it grasp the end of the body bag, which was strung across the front of the penguin, and it went back down into the water.
One of the team fired a shot.
At that, we went up in front of the boat and inspected the body bag and found that the entire end of the bag had been ripped off.
Despite sustained efforts to capture the beast, results have been inconclusive. A number of animals have been caught since the attack, but no one can be sure. There's every chance it's still out there, lurking, waiting for its next prey. There's an old saying out here, never smile at a crocodile. The price could be just too great.
The croc is a powerful and ancient creature, but firmly in the mortal world. Not so the black cat, which allegedly haunts Killakee in Ireland. After the break, Animal X examines the evidence for a terrifying apparition and its occult origins.
The eyes of the cat wax and wane like the moon, so the cat has always been sacred to witches.
Welcome back to the weird world of Animal X. There are many tales of ghosts, but few ghosts with a tail. Here is one, a terrifying black cat that's been seen several times in a place of deep, dark secrets in Ireland. And this is no ordinary spectre. Some say it's the devil himself.
From a land rich in folklore comes one of the most terrifying and best authenticated tales of a ghostly animal. Some believe it's a demon spirit born of violence and bloodshed, a phantom feline known as the Black Cat of Killakee. Animal X travelled to the bleak mountains overlooking Dublin in Ireland to investigate the many reported sightings of this strange apparition, which go back almost 300 years. The story begins with the wealthy Massey family. As titled landowners, they were in control of huge estates, and on them they built some impressive properties. Today, there's little left of those grand mansions. They lie in ruins in the twisted undergrowth of the Irish woods. But there is one part of the original estate still standing, the old dower house, now a restaurant. Mysteriously, over the years, it's become the center of a veritable storm of psychic activity, with sightings of not only the Black Cat, but human spectres as well.
The cat has been seen in various places at various times, and I begin to think there must be more than one cat, because so many people have seen him, and so many people have said they've seen him. Certainly some spooky things have happened, yes.
These frightening events have included bumps and knocks in the night, eerie voices, lights flickering on and off, and doorbells ringing even though they'd been removed. As well, furniture and ornaments have been found smashed around the house. There are many theories as to how the building gained its ghostly reputation. It's had links to the occult and supernatural. Mystical poet William Butler Yeats is reported to have joined in ceremonies at the Dower House. He belonged to the magical order the Golden Dawn, a group whose practices are alleged to have involved the ritual killing of a cat. In the 1930s, the brooding house received another visitor of literary fame, a minor novelist, this time a witness, who claims to have met the cat face to face. Looking for inspiration for his colourful thrillers, F.W. Gumley and a friend set off one winter's night into the grounds of the estate. They weren't disappointed. Just as the pair were about to cross over a wall, they saw in the moonlight the gleaming eyes of a large cat that had confronted them. But it was in 1968 that the most celebrated black cat sighting was recorded. An Irish artist, Tom McCassie, and his two friends were staying at the Dower House, then an art gallery. They noticed a heavy door they'd shut earlier was open. Beyond, in the darkened hallway, they saw a shadowy figure. In a low, guttural voice, it called out to them to leave the door open. But McCassie panicked, slammed the door and ran off. As he looked back, he saw it. Crouched in the hall was a monstrous black cat with piercing red eyes, an image he captured on canvas.
He certainly came up with a fearsome picture of a fierce cat. And people come from far and wide just to see this picture. And it hangs in the front hall in Killakee since that time.
Some say such ghostly phenomena are not surprising, given the reports of terror and sickening cruelty that have occurred in this building, just a stone's throw away on Montpellier Hill. In the 18th century, it was used by members of the Dublin Hellfire Club, a group of arrogant and vicious young bucks said to be in league with the devil. Certain ceremonies are alleged to have involved burning cats alive.
It's interesting when you have stories around a building like that and you wonder what is behind the story.
Local historian John Lennon has delved into the dark past of the Hellfire Club. He's looked at claims of black masses and bizarre wagers in which members won and lost vast sums of money.
Talking about debauchery of all kinds and carry on. Now, cards was the one thing that people say that the stories relate to playing cards at tables and dropping cards on the floor and seeing cloven hooves and people playing cards and the devil himself and all this going on around the club.
According to local folklore, members didn't stop at torturing cats. They killed people as well. In 1970, a shallow grave was uncovered here. In it, the skeleton of a dwarf with a skull too large for its small frame. The discovery corresponded with reports that a member of the Hellfire Club had once tortured to death a deformed youth just for fun. Found along with the boy's remains, this brass figurine of a horned and tailed devil thumbing its nose, mute evidence of the club's evil associations. Back in the 18th century, as claims of such sickening cruelty spread, there were also reports that members had used black cats at club meetings to represent Satan. It said His Sable Majesty graced them with his presence on more than one occasion, a gesture that's not so surprising, really, given the animal's importance to those dabbling in witchcraft.
The classic example of this is Freya, the Norse goddess. She was the witch goddess in the sense that magic and witchcraft all belonged to the goddess Freya. And she was seen riding in a chariot drawn by twin cats. And later on she became demonized. And the cat became associated with witchcraft and darkness and the moon. Janet Farrar believes the Black Cat of Killakee is part of a cat cult
that dates back to the early Bronze Age, when witches first came about.
If you look at a cat, the eyes of a cat wax and wane like the moon. So the cat has always been sacred to witches. And because the witch cult started in Western Europe, especially in Germany, and of course Freya was Nordic, therefore Germanic as well, because of this, the cat became associated with the goddess of the witches. And therefore every village witch was supposed to have the familiar, the witch's demonic cat.
One of those said to have witnessed the cat being used as Satan's representative was a young clergyman. He sought refuge at the club during a snowstorm. Greeted by a cloaked figure brandishing a sword, he soon discovered the building was not a farmhouse, as he'd originally thought. Once inside, he knew for sure he'd made a terrible mistake. He found club members having a meal, their guest of honor, a black cat, sitting at the head of the table. The clergyman asked what the cat was doing there. He was told it was indeed a representative of the devil. He then did what he felt he should do. With his Bible and a cross, he attempted to exorcise the animal. Suddenly, there was chaos. The cat cried out in pain, jumped up onto the table, then onto a chandelier which fell, setting the building alight. What happened to those inside is a mystery, but soon afterwards, the club's activities here ceased. Was the cat really a manifestation of the devil? Who's to say? But one thing's for sure, locals, even now, rarely venture up here after dark. Could it be for fear of meeting the legendary Black Cat of Killakee?